Have you ever walked into a room and the conversation just dies? Not because you asked, but because people changed the very moment that they saw you. That's not about your title. It's about what your presence is signaling. And if that presence signals judgment, inconsistency, or danger, people won't bring problems to you. They're going to protect themselves from you. That's not a personality issue. It's a psychological safety issue. And it shows up long before anybody says a word. In this episode, we're talking about what psychological safety actually looks like, how to build it, how to protect it over time, and how to make it part of your everyday leadership brand. Because when people don't feel safe, they don't speak. And when they don't speak, your team is going to break down quietly. So grab a pen, because this is the type of leadership lesson that defines your reputation, whether you're in the room or not. Welcome to the Everyday Diplomat, where we equip leaders with real-world strategies to lead with clarity, presence, and influence, especially when it matters the most. I'm Michael Forrest, retired Marine Sergeant Major, former U.S. diplomat with the Department of State, and someone who spent over 20 years leading high-performing teams through combat, crisis, and transformation. And here's what I've seen over and over again at every level of leadership. Psychological safety isn't a luxury. It's not a buzzword from an HR seminar. It's the difference between a team that speaks up and a team that shuts down. It determines whether your people take initiative or wait to be told what to do, whether they tell you the truth or they tell you exactly what they think you want to hear. And the scariest part, you don't always know it's missing until the damage is done. A good idea that never gets voiced, a silent disagreement that festers into resentment, a preventable failure that nobody warned you about because they didn't feel safe in doing it. That's why this episode isn't just important, it's urgent, because building psychological safety, it takes time, but losing it, that can happen in a moment. The term psychological safety gets tossed around a lot in leadership circles, MBA classes, and academia. But if you've asked 5 people what it actually means, you're probably going to get 6 different answers. So let's strip it down to what actually matters. Psychological safety simply means that your people feel safe enough to show up fully without pretending, without posturing, and without wondering if today's the day that they're going to regret being honest. It means that they can challenge an idea without challenging their very standing, that they can admit a mistake without losing their credibility, and that they can ask for help from you without being seen as weak. This doesn't mean that anything goes, and it doesn't mean that we coddle or avoid accountability. It means that people know that they're not going to be humiliated for trying, and they won't be punished for telling the truth. Here's what this looks like in real life. A junior team member questions a flawed process and then gets thanked, not sidelined. A peer offers an unpopular idea and the room leans in, not out. A supervisor gives feedback firmly but respectfully, and the relationship grows, not cracks. It's not a vibe, it's a climate, and one that's built brick by brick on trust, respect, and reliability. And here's the part that almost every leader misses. Psychological safety isn't about you being liked. It's about being predictable. If your team can't predict how you're going to react, they're going to stop taking the risk of being real with you, because to them, the emotional math just doesn't work. Sure, I might have a great idea, but if it backfires, will I be blamed? I could flag a concern right now, but if I do, is it going to be seen as negative? I want to contribute, but if I speak up on this, is this going to potentially cost me a promotion down the road? If those questions are playing in their head, they're playing it safe, which means that they're withholding. And when your team withholds, you lose. You lose ideas, innovation, truth, and most importantly, you lose trust. So go ahead and ask yourself, do your people feel safe in saying what they're really thinking? Do they believe that their input will be heard or quietly punished? Do they see you as somebody who listens or somebody that they have to manage? Because if they don't feel safe, they're not going to feel seen. And unseen people, they don't speak. They check out or they just quietly leave. That's the cost of psychological danger. And it doesn't matter how many motivational posters you decide to hang up on the wall. If the culture feels unsafe, none of the surface stuff is ever going to stick. If this part of the conversation is resonating and you want a clearer picture on how to lead with presence and consistency, I put together a free guide for you called The 10 Steps to Confidently Lead High-Performing Teams. It's short, it's practical, and it's completely packed with tools that you can use starting today. I'll go ahead and include the link for you in the description below. Psychological safety doesn't vanish all at once, but it erodes a little bit at a time, quietly. Not through one big blow up, but through a series of very small moments that send the wrong signal. Like when somebody speaks up and you cut them off, dismiss them, or just simply move on. You likely didn't mean to shut them down, but that's how they understood it. And now they're simply wondering if it's going to be safer just to stay quiet next time. Or maybe somebody on your team made a mistake. They owned up to it. They were completely honest. And you said all the right words, but your body language told a completely different story. Or, even worse, you didn't follow up. You didn't support them, and you said nothing at all. Moments like that, they echo, and your team, they're always listening. Not just to the words that you say, but to your tone, your timing, and your consistency. And when there's a gap between what you say and how you act, people don't fill that gap with trust. They're gonna fill it with doubt. That's how safety begins to slip. And here's the hardest part to admit. Sometimes we create the very silence that we are frustrated by. We say things like, why doesn't anybody speak up? But the last time somebody chose to speak up, we made them feel like a horrible person. We wonder, why am I the only one who cares around here? But the last time somebody showed up and showed passion, we told them to calm down. We asked, hey, where are all the great ideas? But the last time someone offered a great idea, we shot it down before they even finished speaking. It's not always malicious. Most of the time, it's completely unintentional. We're tired, we're distracted, we're completely overtasked, we're under pressure. But here's the thing. Intent does not erase the impact. And if your team starts seeing feedback as being risky, they're going to stop giving it. If they start seeing honesty as unsafe, they're going to filter everything that they say to you. And you're not even going to realize it until it's already happened, until it's baked into the actual culture of your team, and until the silence becomes the norm. That's why practicing psychological safety isn't just a one-time effort. It's not a slide in your onboarding deck. It's not a culture value that's just painted on your break room wall. It's a daily practice. It's what you tolerate. It's what you choose to reinforce. It's how you choose to handle the absolute smallest moments, especially when nobody else is watching. Because psychological danger doesn't come out and announce itself. It slowly creeps in. And once it's there, your team is going to learn how to protect themselves instead of contributing to help each other. If you want psychological safety to last, you have to treat it like a system. Not a feeling, not a mood, but a system. One that you build through consistent behaviors. One that your team can count on no matter the day, the pressure, or the problem that they're facing. So let's get really specific. First, respond instead of react. When somebody brings you an issue, a critique, or even a failure, pause. Listen to them clearly and ask questions before you offer your conclusions. This doesn't mean that you don't hold people accountable, but it means that they don't have to brace for impact when they're choosing to be honest with you. Because here's the reality here. People don't stop speaking up because they're weak. They stop only because it's costly. And your job as a leader is to always look for a better way to lower the cost of truth. Second, you got to go ahead and normalize disagreement. If everybody agrees with you all of the time, you're not building alignment, you're building fear. Let people challenge your thinking respectfully. Reward the behavior, not just the results. When somebody says something like, I see it differently, and you respond with curiosity instead of defensiveness, you're reinforcing that safety. Third, and some of y'all are going to have to brace yourself with this word, go ahead and model vulnerability. Own your mistakes. Share what you're working on and say, hey, you know what? I don't know, when that's really the truth. There's nothing wrong with saying that you don't know. Because look, when leaders act like they have it all figured out, they set this unrealistic tone that says, hey, everybody else has to pretend too. That kills learning and it kills the feeling of safety. Fourth, don't forget to follow through. You can't say that my door is always open and then vanish into your office and ignore emails for 3 days straight. You can't tell your team that their voice really matters and then never act on their feedback. Every time that your actions align with your words, you're choosing to reinforce that feeling of safety. Every time that you don't, you're chipping away at it one piece at a time. And finally, watch your informal moments. Those hallway conversations, the Zoom calls before everybody else logs in, the side comments during a meeting, because people are watching how you treat other people, especially when it doesn't count. They're watching who gets interrupted, who gets praised, and who are you ignoring. And all of that adds up to either a culture of safety or a culture of silence. This isn't about being perfect. You're not going to get this right every single time, but your team isn't expecting that. They're not expecting perfection. They're watching for your patterns. So go ahead and build the right ones, not just in how you lead when it's easy, but in how you lead when it's completely inconvenient, because that's when your real culture gets revealed. If you're finding this material valuable, this is what we do here every week. I post long-form videos just like this one, plus leadership shorts to help keep you sharp between uploads. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing. Not for me, but because the world needs more leaders who actually lead just like this. So, how do you know any of this is working? How do you know if psychological safety has actually gone ahead and taken root? Here's what you'll start to notice, and more importantly, what you're going to start to actually feel. First, people are going to start speaking up earlier. They don't wait for the crisis to unfold. They choose to bring the concerns to you, the idea, the tension, before it actually boils over. That's not just proactive communication. That is trust in action. They don't just tell you what you want to hear. They tell you what you need to hear because they actually believe that you can handle it because you've shown them consistently that you're going to. Second, mistakes becoming learning moments, not morale killers. People own their missteps. They talk about what went wrong, not because they don't care, but because they know the conversation is going to lead to clarity, not a character assassination. And you're going to notice this shift in the tone. People are going to stop blaming one another and they're going to start building together. Third, ideas are going to start coming from absolutely everywhere. Not from the loudest voice in the room and not from the senior leader sitting at the head of the table. The newest team member, the quiet observer off in the corner, the person who's in the way back row. They choose to speak up because they've seen that their input actually leads to tangible change. And with that comes creativity, solutions that you would have never thought of, processes that are going to completely evolve, and innovations that are rooted in reality because it came from the actual people who are doing the work. Fourth, your team is going to start to self-correct. You don't have to police every single detail because the culture itself starts doing it for you. Somebody's going to say, hey, we don't do that here, or that's not how we treat people on this team. That's when you know that all of this is deeper than just a policy, and that's when you know that this is really real. And finally, you're going to feel the energy shift. Less second guessing, more engagement, less guardedness, more genuine momentum. Meetings are going to feel different. Side conversations are going to feel different. People lean in because they're no longer in survival mode. They're not just there trying to survive the workday to make it home. They're actually invested in where this team is actually going. And here's what's really powerful. When psychological safety is strong, your job as a leader gets lighter. Not because there are fewer problems, but because more people are around helping you solve the problems. You don't have to carry the weight alone because you've gone ahead and you've built something that's bigger than buy-in. You built belief. That's what psychological safety gives you. Not just open communication, but a team that feels like a team because they actually know that they're safe to show up as themselves and to bring their best and push for better. Psychological safety doesn't make your team soft. It makes them strong. Not because they avoid conflict, but because they know how to face it. Not because they never disagree, but because they've learned how to disagree with absolute respect, clarity, and care. It's not about making everybody comfortable. It's about making everybody on the team feel heard, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because when your team knows that they can speak the truth without paying a price for it, that's when the real work begins. That's when potential gets fully unlocked. And that's when trust becomes part of your culture. And here's the final truth that I'm going to leave with you. This doesn't happen by accident. It happens by absolute pure intention. It happens when you stop managing perception and you actually start modeling presence. That's leadership. Not the title, not the strategy, not your fancy parking spot or your corner office, but the space that you choose to create around you, the one that tells people, hey, it's okay to speak, it's okay to think, and it's okay for you to be real around here. And that kind of space, that doesn't just change your team, it changes your entire brand. It becomes a thing that you're actually known for, even after you leave the room. If you're serious about building that type of leadership identity, one that's built on trust, consistency, and long-term impact, I put a course together called Foundations, and it goes even deeper onto this topic. You'll also find a leadership planner that I built from scratch. It's designed to help people just like you lead with intention every single day. The links for both of these are included in the description below. There's no pressure, but if this message resonated with you, I think these two things are going to help you turn insight into practice. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for choosing to show up. And thank you for leading in a way that makes people feel safe, seen, and stronger than they were before you walked into the room. I'll see you in the next one.